not clickbait. There's an issue related to Pokemon events. VGC is what I focus on because it's what I play, but events broadly, that's been on my mind for a while now. And a few days ago, I did sit down and whip up a quick little letter to the Pokemon Company International, opened a support ticket, and sent that letter to them. What I want to do now is read it, talk about it a little more, and put this out there, see if I can start any kind of conversation here. So, yeah, we're going to read it now. March 4th, addressed to Pokemon Company International regarding Championship Series events in the United States of America. I am a Canadian player who competes in the video game section of the Championship Series. So that's all the Play Pokemon events like regionals, NAIC, and so on. I have attended the North America International Championships, abbreviated to NAIC, in each of the last 2 years, as well as various regional championships in North America. I have a strong passion for the game that has only grown at every event I've attended, but I might now need to end my participation in many of those events due to the issues explained below. NAIC is the premier event for the North America region, which includes not only the United States, but also Canada. While other international championships do exist, NAIC is the only one held within the North America region, and so is easily the most reasonable one for many North American fans to attend. It is a meaningfully different experience from attending a regional championship, often likened to a large Pokemon convention that brings together a wide variety of fans beyond only the competitors. While I did not compete in the years before the first NAIC, my understanding is that NAIC replaced national championship events in North America, and it is still widely perceived as the equivalent of both American and Canadian national championships. I'm going to interject here. How often do you still hear American VGC players call it U.S. Nationals? I see that on YouTube all the time. And again, it is functionally, if it's functionally U.S. Nationals, it is also functionally Canadian Nationals because it's the premier event for both. Back to the letter. The Pokemon World Championships is the most prestigious event in the entire championship series and represents the ultimate goal for competitors worldwide. Earlier today, March 4th, Donald Trump carried out a long-standing threat to impose aggressive and unprovoked tariffs on imports from Canada, as well as other countries including Mexico and China. The Canadian economy relies heavily on trade with the United States, and Trump's actions are expected to cause considerable economic pain in this country at a time when many people here are already struggling. Trump understands the consequences of his actions and has repeatedly made statements in recent months wherein he expressed a desire to use economic pressure to forcibly annex Canada into the United States. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has stated that Trump's ultimate goal in taking such hostile economic actions is to end Canadian sovereignty, and that belief is entirely consistent with Trump's own statements and actions so far. Canada's leaders have consistently emphasized that Canada did not ask for a trade war and certainly did not invite threats to our sovereignty. The cause of the current conflict is Trump's aggression, and his administration is responsible for it. We do not want this. We want to maintain the warm relationship with America and Americans that we have had for many years. As a Canadian player, NAIC is the championship series event that I most look forward to each year. I have thoroughly enjoyed attending in the past and have always left wanting to attend again. But I do not plan to attend this year because I do not believe that a Pokemon event can justify my traveling to and spending money in such an economically and politically hostile country. Even if I were to qualify to compete in the World Championships this year, which again is an incredible opportunity for any player, I do not believe that my conscience would allow me to attend that event either. Canadians should be able to participate in the premier events for our own region without traveling to a country that has taken such a threatening stance toward us. American players are welcome to come here with their dignity intact. Pokemon games heavily promote values of diversity, mutual respect, community building, and cooperation. In browsing the website of the Pokemon Company International, I found many mentions of the company's strong commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to social impact in general. Asking many international players to travel to the United States at this time is not consistent with those values. Therefore, I ask that as soon as logistically possible, and continuing indefinitely until the political situation is drastically changed from its current state, both NAIC and the Pokemon World Championships no longer ever be held in the United States of America. I appreciate your attention to this matter, and I regret that the American government has created such wide-reaching problems for their own country and others in the first place. And then I took out my more personal information here, but that is what I sent to TPCI a few days ago on the 4th. which was the day that Trump brought back the tariffs that he had paused. I gather he has since paused some of them again, but I'm not really interested in trying to follow the fine details of that because honestly, I think it's just an abuse tactic that I think he just keeps changing his story about what he will and won't do, and it's not worth trying to get lost in the fine details of that. And I think from the response I've seen from Canadian political leaders, they understand that too. But yeah, so that's my message. That the ask here is at the end, as soon as possible. No NAIC in the United States. I guess that means they would have to host it in Canada, but that's not even really of that much interest to me. Just that it not be in the United States, and no Worlds in the United States. Of course, I don't know whether that logistically will be possible anytime soon. They've already announced that Worlds will be in the U.S. this year and next. NAIC, probably they have multiple years of arrangements with the venue and whatever service providers they need. But that's for them to figure out, right? I don't have all the information behind the scenes. I do want to talk a little bit more about some of the things that I wrote here because I think I did an okay job with this letter, but there are some parts that I can maybe pick apart a little bit, maybe are worth a little bit of scrutiny if, say, anyone else wants to get in touch with Pokemon Company International and put their own spin on this. So there are three things that I'll call out here. The first one is, so the ask here, indefinitely until the political situation is drastically changed from its current state. What does that mean? Well, if I'm going to make a specific ask of TPCI, I have to have specifics, right? Or I have to sort of define my terms. And at one point when I was writing this, I actually was thinking that the ask would just be never hold them in the US again, period. That's it. But that's not really reasonable, and it's not really what I want. I don't, I'm not looking to start a fight with American players here. I don't have an issue with the American player base. They're obviously not the same thing as the American government, and I don't want to say your country. I was going to say your country is mean. That's putting it way too mildly. But your country is going rogue. Therefore, I'm punishing you. That's not the goal here. So there has to be some kind of end condition, right? But I don't think it's for me to try to define it in a letter to TPCI, partly because, again, I don't have all the information on what goes into their decision-making behind the scenes, and partly because I think there's room for... I think there are tough judgment calls to be made on where to draw the lines with these things. There's room for disagreement, there's room for ambiguity, there's room for thinking these things through more than I did in an afternoon. So I could write out here, I could try to figure it all out. It would take me a lot longer than writing this did as it is, and try to think, okay, don't hold them while President Trump is in office. Don't hold them while there's a Republican president. Don't hold them while all these other goblins like J.D. Vance and Elon Musk are still around. But that gets messy very quickly, and it's not... Pretty quickly, it's not a realistic ask, or even of myself, to try to figure out all the criteria. So better to leave it up to their judgment, even if that means it's out of my hands then. Second thing I want to look a little bit more closely at, obviously, this letter focuses more on NAIC, and the points about Worlds are kind of tacked on. In fact, I don't even know whether TPCI has a role in organizing Worlds for certain. I didn't even think to check that when I was writing this. But there are two reasons that there's more focus on NAIC here. The first reason is that's the event that I'm familiar with, and it's the emotional motivator behind me writing to TPCI at all. I have gone to NAIC. I have not gone to Worlds. The mention that's in here somewhere about I don't know if I'd even be able to go to Worlds if I qualified is actually kind of empty because I'm not going to qualify, nor have I ever before. But NAIC... again, that's what got me riled up in the first place, because as I say in the letter, that's an event that I have gone to. I started going to events in 2023. I've gone to every NAIC since then so far. And I've absolutely loved it every time. And less than a year ago, it really makes me sad that less than a year ago, I was packing up and leaving New Orleans thinking, I'm really looking forward to coming back here next year, seeing some more of the city, having an amazing Pokemon experience again. And now, about a month ago, I decided that I don't want to go anymore. And not because of anything to do with the event or with Pokemon, but because of other things that are unrelated but are ultimately more important. That really sucks. And that goes to the second reason that I focus on NAIC here, which is this bolded sentence right here. I bolded it for emphasis because it's really the core of what I think is my best point in this letter. And once I'd fleshed out this thought, I knew I completely believed it. I do think it's correct. As a Canadian player, I should have a premier TPCI international level event to go to. They do them in each of their regions, except for some reason OCIC doesn't exist anymore. I don't know the backstory to that, but they do them in their other regions, certainly. I think presumably so that players from each region have one that they can go to. But exactly as I laid out here, I mean, I actually think I made this point perfectly well in the letter, and I'm just rehashing if I say it again. NAIC, then, is the premier event for Canadian players. It's the one that's meant to be accessible to us, but it's not accessible to us, at least to many of us. I'm going to try not to judge harshly any Canadian players who do still go this year, but honestly, that is going to take me some effort. It doesn't function like that for us if it means that we have to go to and spend money in a country that is, judging by the words and actions of its leaders, very literally trying to destroy our country right now. Trump says that he wants to end Canada and make this part of the United States. He wants to use economic pressure to do it, and he is ramping up economic pressure through his trade war. What does that look like? Well, it's not the same as a military invasion, but it still looks like he's trying to be an existential threat to my country. And that kind of dynamic, yeah, it would take a lot for me to find room in my conscience to go there. And that means that it's a bad host for an international event that is meant to be for me and for my fellow Canadian players, as well as American ones. And it is not the same thing both ways, because Canada didn't pick a fight with the United States, and I think most of us would be perfectly happy to welcome Americans to an NAIC held here. So that's why the greater focus on NAIC, because it's kind of personal, but also because I think it is my best point, and the one that I do think is just correct. Finally, this paragraph here, in hindsight, it feels a little bit tacked on, the one about values of diversity and cooperation and so on. There's obviously a lot unsaid there, right? It's hard to talk about the current situation in the U.S. without going into a rant about the racism and the I mean, all kinds of isms, but it's not really. But I did make sure not to do that in this letter because it's not the point of what I'm talking about here, and I think it could very quickly distract from what I actually am asking for and my reasons for it, right? Because I'm not trying to say the United States is a country not fit to host tournaments. First of all, that would get no traction. They run a ton of events in the US for a lot of reasons, but also, again, it's not the ask here. I don't want to fight with the American player base. Honestly, I'm hoping some Americans will see this and amplify the message. I mean, I'm not very optimistic about that, but I'd certainly like it to happen. I don't want to say no events in the US at all. In fact, I'd like things to settle down and to be back going to events in the U.S. someday. It feels like it might be a long time, but the specific point that I'm making here is that when the American government is behaving so hatefully to much of the rest of the world, it then is not appropriate that the United States host events that explicitly cater to other parts of the world. So an international championship and the world championship specifically. But I think I could have done more to tie in this paragraph to that broader theme. I mean, looking back, I actually think I did better at it than I thought I remembered. Asking many international players to travel to the United States at this time is not consistent with those values. I think I could have spelled that out a little more, but hopefully it lands well enough. But all of that said, that's my basic argument here. They should not hold NAIC in the United States, while the United States is hostile to the rest of the North America region, and we have a tough moral choice to make here in Canada about going there, about whether to ever go there. Personally, I don't think I'll be going to the United States anytime soon. And as much as I love Pokemon, the reasons are bigger than it. My goal in making this video, again, I would kind of like it to not just be me talking about this. I mean, I think this video is probably going to get like 30 views and maybe a couple of comments, but I don't have any better platform than that. I'm not very well connected in the broader VGC community. A lot of VGC discussion seems to happen on that Nazi website owned by Elon Musk. I don't have an account on there anymore. I honestly have thought about making one just for this and then deleting it later, but I mean, a brand new account's not going to have any reach. I might give that a try anyway, but it's not a very comfy idea. But I figure this may be the best platform that I have, even though it's not a very good one, to at least give it a go. And that's sort of what this comes down to, right? I don't actually think it's very likely that anything will come of me writing to TPCI like this. I think it should, but I don't think it's very likely. But it really doesn't cost me anything at all to shoot my shot. I mean, this letter took, I don't know, not very long to write. And I feel somewhat better for having it off my chest. And now I think I'll feel somewhat better for having at least tried to open up the discussion to the broader Pokemon community. And I keep saying VGC because that's what I play, but TCG is the bigger game and has exactly the same issue. I mean, I don't know what the Canadian presence is in TCG because I don't know that circuit at all, but if this does get out there, by all means, let's see TCG players talking about it. Let's see Pokemon Go players. Is Pokemon Unite still at NAIC? I'm not optimistic here, but I would love to see that broader conversation. One very important thing, though, notice I have made every effort to keep a courteous and professional tone here, because I'm not looking to start a fight with the Pokemon Company International either, nor am I looking to confront them, get in their face. I'm simply asking that they do what I think is consistent with the goals and values that they promote. So I would encourage other people to get in touch with TPCI if you agree that the U.S. is not fit to host these particular events right now, and tell them something similar, maybe your own take on it if you want. But I do have to insist that it not be aggressive, not be hostile, it be polite and courteous, as I've done here, because getting more confrontational, TPC, none of these problems are TPCI's fault either. That's why I included this part here to as a way of acknowledging that. So don't treat them like it is their fault. And even if you think that they should move events, as I do, there are a lot of reasons that's difficult for them that I don't necessarily understand, which is why I've left it open-ended and up to them exactly when it's possible to do that. Not that I think it's likely that they will anyway. I absolutely think they should. But yeah, point is TPCI is not anyone's enemy here. Don't treat them like they are if you get in touch with them at all. But that's all. I just wanted to get this out there so that it's not just me. Well, it might just be me anyway, but so that there's a possibility that it's not just me. I'm dead serious about this. I would like to see, it could take years for the United States to get off of its current course, if it ever happens. I talk about I'm not going to NAIC this year. I'm not making content on U.S. events this year. I'm getting ready for it to be a lot more years than just this one. I guess I'm breaking my own declaration that I wouldn't even mention U.S. events on the channel for at least the rest of this season, but I think this is a worthwhile exception to make to that. I'll get right back to that after this. I probably won't even watch NAIC this year, or Worlds. But yeah, I really believe that these events need to be moved out of the United States as soon as they can be. And I'm focusing on the game that I play and that stirred up emotions in me. It would be nice to see a lot of other hobby spaces, a lot of other organizations having the same conversation. But I don't know if this will start a conversation. I hope it does. I've rambled longer than I meant to. I'll call it there. You get the point, and you can do with it whatever seems best to you.